Looking back, what is one thing I would tell my 16-year-old self about university? And is to tell myself to not be so overcommitted in clubs and extracurriculars. I was the type of student who participated in every single committee possible in the residence council. I was also at one point a part of my department council and also faculty, and in addition to that, the university students council. So I participated in a lot of extracurriculars. And I devoted most of my attention to extracurriculars and not so much my grades. So of course, in the first and in my first year in particular, where I really overstretched and committed myself into literally every committee possible, I didn't study too much. But again, I also didn't really understand my studies, my study type at that time. So my grades definitely took a beating. But I also didn't really, because I was so overly committed with all these different committees that they weren't the same theme. Like, I would be a part of finance committee, part of environmental committee. I was part of running these winter O weeks. The theme was all over the place. So in a sense, I was also kind of using it to kind of explore myself, but not focusing on exploring, what actually interests me. I just did anything that at that point interested me. And so I think the lessons learned here was I shouldn't have overcommitted myself. I would tell myself to not participate in so many committees, like definitely not 10, 15 committees. I would tell myself to maybe commit to 2 or 3. I would tell myself to focus on finding what your niche area is, finding what interests me, because for myself, I'm definitely a very curious person. So looking back, I would definitely tell my 16-year-old self that not only you need to only focus on 2 to 3 things, but you also need to figure out what interests you, and you need to focus on finding what interests you and not trying anything possible that's curious or interesting to you at the time, because that doesn't help in terms of self-exploration. And then finally, I would also tell myself that, in first year university, things get very exciting because things are very fresh. You're living away from home for the very first time. You're literally living with your friends that are just doors apart. There are so many different parties that you can go to. You can go to the dining hall so many times. There are just so many things that can distract you from why you're in university, which is to first and foremost to get a degree. And then for myself, I always wanted to go to grad school. So the end goal for me was to get enough grades to get enough experience that I could be successful in attaining a grad school spot at the end. So looking back, 3 things that I would tell myself is that, 1, focus on why you're in university. What is your end goal and what you need to do in the next couple of years to reach your end goal. The second is it's important to participate in extracurriculars, but don't overly commit yourself. Don't spend, being in meetings all week for your 10 to 15 committees that you're part of. Focus on 2 to 3 things and do those very well and play a leadership role in those. And then finally, focus on self-exploring and finding your true passion and interests. And participating in 10 or 15 committees isn't the way to find your true passion and interest, because then you just get to do a very tip of the iceberg for that particular theme, and you don't really get the time to appreciate the full potential of that aspect. So if you focus on 2 to 3 things only, then you get to devote a lot more time into that particular thing, and you get to find out very much sooner whether or not this is the right thing for you, if you're interested in it or not, and you can just move on to the next one if it doesn't. So these are some of the things that, looking back to my 16-year-old self, about what I would have done differently when it came to first year university.